Pretty familiar. Okay, and then when the computer's on, it will auto open Zoom up.
All right, well, we're gonna get started. Once people are filtering in and, finishing their spiritual formation, I figure that's what's taking so long.
They're not fully formed. That's You're still working on
Right. Yeah, so thank you guys for coming today. We're excited to hear from Ricardo. This today is a spiritual transformation getting all the words confused. Yeah. Social transformation and arts lunch combined. But through this fall, they'll be separate. Ricardo will be doing the rest of the arts lunches for this term before Jennifer comes back. There'll be more details on that soon. And then there will be 2 more social transformation lunches this fall. October 10th will be one on disability theology with an alum, Laura Kanata and North Woods. And then November 14th, I believe, will be anti-racist missionaries with Gary. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about either of those, you can feel free to email me. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw it over to Ricardo.
Awesome.
Please share about yourself.
Thank you. Cool. Well, welcome today. My name is Ricardo Pérez. I use he, him pronouns. And I think I'll talk to you all here and there, but I don't know where to look sometimes. But if you cannot hear me, or if you ever through this conversation have any questions or thoughts or whatever, please do feel free to interrupt, because I want this to be more like a conversation than me just talking at you. So quick note also, most of the photographs shown on this presentation come from myself. Just so you know, I was really there. So
Thank you.
so yeah, anyway, so the journey today we're gonna embark is about myself. My name is Ricardo Pérez González. I was born and raised in Mexico, and this is a photo I took in Mexico City. I think it was around Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos on November 2nd, but this is El Zócalo, which is our kind of like downtown, the center of the city. And Mexico City and being Mexican has really shaped my experience in the US. And I didn't know until I got here, right? But we're not there yet in this journey. So if you maybe want to move, or if I can to the next one. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. All right. So I was born and raised in Acapulco, Guerrero. So on the left of your screen there, you'll see myself and my brother Andres. My mom, I guess, used to dress us alike. But we grew up in this beautiful, tropical, isolated place. That's the highway you used to take every day to get to the city, but we live more on the outskirts. In Acapulco, again, I lived there the first 14 years of my life, and it taught me many, many, many things. But one of the very interesting lessons that I wanted to share with you today, especially being in this building, is that my parents were directors of this orphanage called Casa Hogar del Niño de Acapulco, which is an orphanage in Acapulco that's connected to a church that my parents and my uncles got help started due to their own religious experience. So my family comes from like poor background. My grandmother raised my dad and my uncle by herself in the outskirts of Mexico City, and then she married my grandfather. And like my dad's life, mostly about leaving that poverty, and escape for them was Acapulco, actually a place where a lot of people that live in Mexico City like to escape to go on vacation because it's close, it's cheap, it's available, so without a doubt, I come from a family of dreamers, of visionaries, of struggle, and this is part of that journey. This is one of those stops. But I was gonna get to my parents got trained and they got some training, and they went to school in a seminary in Mexico City, and that's how I'm sure they felt more ready to serve in an orphanage. you know, in that time in my life, I lived this interesting duality where I lived in the orphanage, we lived with the kids. My dad really wanted us to have the same experience. And at the same time, during school time, I was going to school in a very, very affluent school because they gave us a scholarship. So, you know, like I used to see the mansions from most of the kids that live there and their bodyguards and their chauffeurs. And then I used to go home and I used to share home with 100 other kids. I used to share parents with 100 other kids, you know. So that contrast really stick with me, you know, like why are these kids having this kind of experience and these other kids completely different, you know? So early on I start seeing that calling, you know, about like, yeah, what is my role in that polarity in these instances, you know? Should I say something like, where do I fall? Because I didn't find myself in the wealthiest or I wasn't an orphan either, you know? So that, like I said, really was like an important seed in my brain, I guess. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on in. We're only getting started, so no worries. You haven't missed anything that big. So, but yeah.
You still get to see Minnie's
Yeah.
striped outfit, so.
Perfect.
Exactly.
That's all I care about
Yes,
actually,
yes,
so.
that's why we're doing it. So just for later on, I have two younger brothers. They're both also artists. My brother in this picture has become a photographer, and my youngest, who you might see later, he's a cinematographer. You know, so art definitely runs in the family. And yeah, this is kind of like where we started, and some of the things that marked me. So yeah. All right, so at the age of like 14 or so, I moved to Mexico City, and the picture there on the top left, that's actually our street. So as I'm standing outside of my house and I'm looking towards the hospital, and this is the street that we grew up on. The right there, that's like my grandmother's apartment. And there, here in the middle is like a fruit stand where you can get blended juices and sandwiches. So for me, I really, really love Mexico City. It really shaped my artistic lens, my social justice lens. Protests in Mexico City are very common. I remember many times walking into the main street, main avenue, and seeing teachers protesting, or, you know, just like there's always someone out in the street. It truly never sleeps, like New York, I guess, but bigger, I guess, you know, I don't know. I am biased. Um, And yeah, so anyways, I just wanted to maybe show a little bit of the Mexico City part here. And that's, I think, when, you know, like art was starting to become more present in my life as a form of expressing myself. And also the idea that I was gonna move to the US became very tangible in this moment in my life. Like many Mexicans, I believe the numbers are like 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 9 moved to the US, you know? So the notion of immigrating, of moving around, it's embedded in our culture, you know? We use words in English in our vocabulary. We eat food that comes from you. We know you're out there. We're, you know, like the culture that we see through television is relentless. We are in the same continent, but we are two different worlds, right? But you know, so anyways, this was my stop before moving to the US. And I moved to the US when I was 18. So I was, oh yeah, this is a little bit more Mexico City. I don't know, I just like it. People used to throw a lot of garbage on the streets, but they start putting up these shrines or these virgenes, and then it really transforms the street, you know? So this notion of art, street, interacting with people was always in my mind, right? And to the left is like a fruit vendor in Mexico City. And to talk about sometimes, yeah, like where, you know, like in when you're Mexican, like opportunity is how, you know, economic mobility sometimes move, in which sometimes our survival moves, you know? So I feel that that's also very ingrained in who I am. Because there's not a linear plan, you know. I'm sure this guy on the left wasn't planning on selling fruits on the streets, perhaps, you know, but opportunity might let him there, you know. And so yeah, more about the culture, street vendors up there. a woman selling nuts. That truck there on the bottom, it says, I am going, they said, God is with me, and if not, I'm going back with him. You know, so this idea of like spirituality, culture, resistance, like poverty, extreme wealth, like this is really Mexico, and that's what shaped me, in a way, getting here. So anyway, so that's, and then arts, right? Like Mexico is extremely, in my point of view, very full of culture, of art, of color. And look at it, right? Like look at the colors in that vendors, like on the street, like it's very, very colorful, So when I look at my own art, and you'll see more in a second, or see it in a second, you might see some of that chaos, some of that saturation, some of that intensity, I guess, that I grew up seeing everywhere. So this so this is art and social justice, right? So I told you I moved to the US, and this is a more handsome younger version of myself, I guess. Back when I didn't go to school, like unlike you all, like who are currently going to school, who are a teacher. I didn't go to college, not because I didn't want to go, because when I moved to the US, I was back in 2018. No. When was that? No, my God, you see, I'm older now. It's 2008. When was that the housing crisis? Remember? Like 2008. Oh my gosh. I just gave my date. I'm thinking I'm 10 years younger than what I am. So 2008, I was going to Normandale Community College, and I wanted to go and study 3D animation or something like that. But back then in 2008, they were telling us students, don't take out loans, the economy is about to fall, So I, find myself moving back to my parents, because my parents have now also moved with us, and that's for another day. But I needed to be independent. And the one thing I felt like I knew how to do was to speak English and Spanish. So I became an interpreter. And this is a photo. Actually, this is my last day after 5 years of interpreting for Ramsey County Human Services Department, an office that basically, it's a whole building. And I used to be the interpreter for the whole building. So I call those years, those were my college years, in there, I learned what are my people's struggles, So I used to interpret for financial workers, for social workers, for child protection agents, for the detox, where people were sent if they were caught inebriated and they were locked down, doing chemical assessments. So imagine that, right? I'm coming from my country, and I come to know my people in these lands, I see my community struggling, impoverished, criminalized. I see single moms coming, telling me, I don't have anything. They just deported my husband. I don't have an ID. Can you please help me? So that calling, being in the orphanage, understanding that experience of my parents, understanding the miracles of life, of this religious spiritual experience, really had my ear open for not just being an interpreter, but I was learning about my people, So it was very, very special, and I really, really love interpreting and translating. But this really, really marked me, and it really made me angry, knowing that the people that I knew so well, that I love so much, were coming here to struggle and have struggles like the ones that I was witnessing, So that was very important. And I will add here, at the same time, maybe a bit earlier than this moment, but I also come to learn, because in Mexico, believe it or not, they don't really tell us about racial tensions in the US. They're not very public about the oppression towards Black people in the US, as you can imagine. They don't really tell us that. But when I got here, I started seeing videos of Selma, more information on the African American Black community's experience in this country, and I couldn't help but see those similarities, about how they treated us versus what was guaranteed for my whiter counterparts, So again, this is the true journey, this is the true lived experience and how I was getting to right here, right now, today with you, so, all right, so a little art break here, I guess. So, in there, you'll see my daughter Ramona, who now I like to do art with. And this is a little bit of, this is a more, probably a couple of years piece. But this is supposed to be New Mexico. There's some cactuses in there, some mountains. But you see again, it's like the saturation of colors, the elements of what I'm bringing up. One of the cactuses at the bottom has become a luchador, and you'll start seeing more of that recurrent themes in the art that I'm producing. Again, this is very like personal art. Like I'm not really out there sharing it because I don't know, maybe that's for another day, but I struggle with the ego aspect of things. What is my ego moving my art versus just being an expression of myself? Because at that point, that's what it truly became. For me, art was therapy. I used to go interpret 8 hours a day, and I used to come back to my apartment and I used to paint for hours, and I used to just like think and let things like come out of my hands, and I wasn't really planning on making a weird face, and you might see more of my art later, but it was truly things that were emerging out of, I feel the need of my brain, of my body, to release some of these things that I was feeling and I was seeing, it wasn't a plan for me to be here with you sharing it, but it was born out of a need. So little art break there.
Yeah.
And yeah, more art maybe here. So I did put the luchador face there, and then to your left, then and like something weird that has happened to me is like I sometimes find myself in my art. I don't like to make my own face, but it's the face I see every day, and it's normal that it comes out in the art, So I hope the resolution is not too bad, but the one on your left, it was in Bemidji, and it's like a night scene in a lake there, but the recurrent theme of the masks kept coming back, for me, I guess. And then on the right, that's another ink and watercolor piece that I do. So for example, I see a lot of buildings come up in my drawings, and without a doubt, I know that's Mexico City. Apartment buildings. I grew up in an apartment, a multi-generational household. So before, when I was starting to produce the art, I didn't really understand it even myself, but as I am actually explaining it to you, it's easy to see, I guess, some of the similarities between what I was exposed to and what I was painting. So, but this is really about art and social transformation, and we're getting there because of this a little bit more art. So this is some charcoal and some ink that I just wanted to share with you today. On these are the digital, so I do watercolor ink, and these are some of the digital illustrations that I have done as well. So I'll make sure that you have access or information on my Instagram and other ways that you can check out my art. But here it is. I also have print, so when I see you, you might get one. So yeah, it's more to come on that. So, but here it is. Okay, so. Do any of these photos ring a bell? One of them, I told you all my pictures are mine, but except this one here on the top left, where I wanted to put it up there. So again, I'm an artist, I am an interpreter. At this point, I'm an organizer, and it was May 2020 in Minnesota, the murder of George Floyd happened, at the hands of Minneapolis police. And I remember that day very, very clearly. And I remember how it just felt like it really impacted me, like to see what happened, to feel it, to it was extremely intense, and it also felt like, with the pandemic, like it was a formula for me to feel the importance to be out in the street, talking with people, and bring art to be my full self in this moment. So I did the poster on the right. I love poster and protest art. As you look at protests historically in the U.S., you'll see a lot of richness in the signs that people bring out, and there's a lot of, I want to say, people bring out their soul in these signs. Can you imagine? It's like a congregation of voices that you can see through these visual interpretations. So for me, as you can see, that very clearly the message was obvious, because at the time there was like a question about why did that happen. For me, it was clear that it was a murder. It's clear that there is no justice and there couldn't be peace. I still keep that poster. I am also a collector of art, I guess. So yep. So yeah, that's that. And then so as a result of that, like I feel like I was activated, and for the first time in my career, artistic and as an organizer, I saw clearly an opportunity for art and social justice, like first to express myself as an artist in the movement space. I am an artist, and then things start happening after. So as the process were happening, I was active. I couldn't go to bed. I remember going to sleep and I couldn't. I remember like when things started burning, like pieces of burnt were falling in our yard in Richville from Minneapolis, and it was very, very traumatizing and intense, because Lake Street was where a lot of the impacts was happening.
Right.
A street that my community, Mexican community, Latino community, in my opinion, helped preserve and put forward as a cultural destination, So to see the recipients of this anger to be on that street it felt like it was about me too, So on Facebook, I saw a post on one day like saying in Spanish, "Who wants to paint a mural on my store?" And I feel like that's one of those moments where it was like a multi-universe, like a new universe appearing in front of me. Because to be honest, my art was personal. I'm a busy person. Like my plan wasn't to be a muralist, but just like with my parents, when they moved into the orphanage or when I moved here, it was a calling. It was like this energy bigger than myself that really led me to say, yeah, I can paint a mural. And I called my friend Sebastian, who at that moment became my accomplice, how you call it?
Accomplice.
Yeah, to many of my art adventures. And this is the end product of this mural. As you can see, George Floyd makes an appearance. It's a stencil. And the main idea and energy behind this mural was the mural's called Black and Brown Relationships. We wanted to say and tell the story that in Lake Street, there were Mexican people, Latino people, and we were seeing, understanding, I guess, in quotations, or just digesting everything, right? We thought it was gonna take us one day to paint this mural, and it ended up taking us, I think, 2 full weeks or more. The plywood pieces that you see this mural on were not just for welcoming a paint, but it was actually to protect the business. This is an immigration law firm, so very precious, delicate information lives inside of this building, and it got vandalized. They destroyed the window front. So I like to believe that during those days, we weren't only artists, but we were also protecting, healing the space. People come up to us and they'll talk about the mural, and that's when another moment of realization of the power of art and social transformation. We weren't just artists, we were shamans, we were preachers, we weren't fulfilling one role only, we were touching many roles, thinking of that opportunity of doing that, So we had, and in this first mural, I think, or the style that I like to pursue emerged. So we had an opening day, an opening event for this mural where we invite poets and other artists to come and put energy out for the piece. And we also had a closing ceremony. So again, it's not about just a piece of art in paper or in wood. It's about the experience of making art and bringing people along that journey. So social transformation and art. We didn't want to, like, something that was happening back then too was like, there was an org that I respect a lot and appreciate that was collecting the murals. And now there's a repository of hundreds of them that's actually weather control. Ours are in a garage, which is fine, but we did want to keep it because we didn't want this art to sit on a shelf, to sit in a repository, weather control. This art belongs in the streets, belongs to the people, belongs to a movement. So very thankfully, and again, this mysterious, powerful energy keep leading us places like here. So one of those stops was a gallery showing, and I know we're getting close to one, I'll speed it up here, but we had a gallery showing where we brought some of the youth that work, oops, no, this is not the youth, no, I'm jumping towards it, I'll show you later, but we want the art to give life and give to people, right? So, oops, in the organizing journey, it's not about me. I haven't figured all this out by myself. I'm not a genius or anything. I've been exposed to a lot of people who are wonderful, incredible. This is a training I took here called Community Equity Pipeline. I love the people that I met there. Now you see two representatives here, Representative Maria Isa, 65B, Representative Spencer Moore in the state of Minnesota, another wonderful, I guess, personality. So it's really about the village. It's about the people. And then this is another, I just wanted to show you what happens when you organize another one of those experiences that helped shape my lens. With Pueblos de Lucha y Esperanza, an organization that I'm a board member of, I was working with them and we help organize manufactured home communities. So this event gathered 12, 15 communities across the state, and we went to demand them to liberate money so folks can fix their homes. Because what was happening then was that people couldn't access money to fix their homes because of their migratory status. So you see that notion of who enjoys this place, benefits, etc. And the signs, again, kept coming out there. So this is another picture. So in there, you remember Ramona? She's right there on the front. So art and social transformation is a family business. And this is Pueblos. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So maybe another organizing one. This is in the city of Minneapolis. Art, people. You know, when you do art, you're including kids. When you're including kids, you're including moms. When you're including moms, you're including dads. So what happens if you're only talking to dads? The kids are not gonna come, and then you're missing out what this is all about. So again, Ramona and my partner Margaret that made an appearance, and this is in the city of Richfield, just to show that journey of organizing. So, all right, so you know, once we did the George Floyd murals, and I know we're getting close to the end here, but people now start calling us, hey, we're doing a protest at the Armory in St. Paul. They murdered a soldier, Vanessa Guzman. We're doing an event. Come and do a mural for us. And then that started happening. You see, and those pictures are from that event where we, again, continue to see the importance of doing art in community, for community, because they want us to, right? So, and then this other mural that, you know, another opportunity to merge social transformation and art. We work with a photographer to capture organizers in the movement, and we did a collage with their photographs and we painted. As you can see, this is outside of a Union building in Lake Street. This mural has a bittersweet story because they didn't give it back to us at the end. I actually don't know where it is, but it was beautiful. We'll skip this video. I was gonna show you just another showcasing that art, just like art and art and social transformation. My last example, how are we doing with time still? Are we good? Okay. So this is another culmination of that joint experience. So we, after all these things, can you imagine this happened to me? Like I just said yes to this mural in this moment, social uprising, and now there's an opportunity to do an 80-foot long mural in the city where I live, Richfield, you know? And I didn't want to shy away from doing art and organizing. As a matter of fact, I feel responsible to continue to center it because that's what has led us there. I didn't want to put out one of my drawings in this huge wall. I mean, I could have, right? But again, to me, it's really not about me, it's about the experience. So in this instance, we wanted to talk to Richfield about what do you want to see in this mural? So we used some organizing strategies and a participatory opportunity called Dotocracy, where folks would vote, what do you want to see, a forest, a city, or a jungle? And then we also have them fill out a survey, a bilingual survey about the elements of the designing the mural. And for me, it almost became a challenge to say, I want this lady to come back and to see the monkey or the strawberry or the banana that she told me, because when she comes back and sees that, I know that this mural will transform into something else for her, So, and anyways, those are pictures. It was a super, super cool experience. Again, Sebastian accompanied me and helped me deliver this. I didn't know how much cement blocks absorb heat until we did this. Mural is not easy, it's extremely hard, but it's a lot of fun too. So here's another photo. Imagine how big.
Great.
I know this is not even the final product. Now, this looks weird, but if you ever go there, you can see this. It's on Chicago and 72nd in Richfield, but it's also an augmented reality mural. So if you use your phone, Jaguar will appear, and there's other elements that come to life. So this is just showcasing again the community aspect of things, following that modus operandi. We did an event at the end, a multicultural event, multilingual event. We had music, we had a celebration. I also wanted to include this top right. These are my first customers ever that bought art prints from me ever when I first sold that. And they were so cool about it that I was like, I love this. I was like truly hooked. All right, hold on. Okay, another picture. So we brought Aztec dancers to the, and here's a photo of my family. There's Enzo, Ramona, Leonardo, and my partner Margaret. And I think that's the last one that I have. So, yeah.
That's great.
So anyways, I thought, I'm not gonna have time, but, yeah.
Is it possible to go back
Yeah.
to the one that you did on the plywood there
Yes.
at the immigration office?
Yeah.
And you did something on the board, on the door, and you had a bubble there of somebody saying something.
Yeah.
And I want to know.
Well, so it was clever because we put like, who are the artists? So in that opportunity, we used that bubble speech to say, this is my name, I made this art. However, though, there were other messages, I might show you later, but if you were to zoom into those buildings in the background, you would see tenants holding signs that would say like, free the oppressed, up there, like housing justice. So, it had a lot of detail. We saw people that came in and in one day they were able to do it because it was spray cans mostly, but we were with tiny brushes like painting it. So I'm really hoping that for the symposium, or what is the name of that week when?
Symposium.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to bring some of these pieces that I have so you can see them in person if you're here. So I would love for you to check them out. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any questions for Ricardo? We have some time for questions. No pressure.
Yeah, if you ever wanna have a one-to-one and meet and talk, I would love to make sure to do that, so, yeah.
So it's not a question, but Ricardo, my name is Mimi Goodwin, and I'm sorry I mistake.
Sorry.
And 2020 was such a time to call the artist actors into expression. So
Yeah,
just hearing and witnessing your story just brought me back to that. And
yeah.
and for me, because of health reasons, I could not go on the street. And so creating the art was a way for me to be in the street and really opened up the whole door the way I work with fabrics. From that moment, and like you said, I didn't planned to do this, and
Yeah.
well, here we are, here's the invitation.
Yeah.
And definitely the community art making the wisdom that comes is so much more than any one of us can ever
Yeah.
create.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for sharing. And yeah, it's like you don't really know the moments that will mark your life, you know, but I think like being open and in both spirit and ears and eyes for you to find those opportunities is a responsibility. Because I feel sometimes people just go without noticing those miracles, you know, but if you're paying attention, then that experience completely transforms, I feel, and to me, that's art. 100%, so. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So,
I'm interested, Ricardo, in, I'm just interested in how you gain such a passion for justice,
Mhm. Mhm.
along the way. You
Mhm.
talked about your parents'
Mhm.
work, your grandmother,
Yeah.
and then the people you were with when you first got here,
Mhm.
your college experience, okay, it's like-
Yeah.
and all of that seems a
Mhm.
cumulative kind of
Yeah,
impression,
sure.
but then to put it into action.
Sure.
was-
Sure. Absolutely. So I think, yeah, and no, thanks for asking that, because we thought that is another moment of like, just like with the mural opportunity, like I was interpreting at a meeting in the city of Bloomington with a group of people that recently has lost their manufactured homes due to a sale. And I remember that that's when I met Ned Moore, who is, I believe, a teacher here,
Yes,
right? Ned
right.
Moore, and I met Antonia Alvarez, and I remember I was interpreting, I was crying, and I couldn't stop myself, and that was a calling, that was a moment where it was the first time that I ever spoke, a white man ever used me as an interpreter to speak to another. Thank you so much. I was like, I don't know where there was.
Oh, you know, I'm a spare grandmother.
I love
here.
Yeah. You know, and like I remember that because of the way that they showed up and the energy they brought into the room, that I was hooked, you know, and like I remember that I got involved with them at that moment, and I started getting training, you know, and the wonderful thing about organizing, when it found me in a way, or when we found each other out in the field, it's that a lot of that training I had early on in my college years in translating and interpreting, all the things started getting terms like, yeah, oppression, yes, organizing, community power, organizing campaign, door knocking, like all these elements of what the things that I knew became like real. You know, so it wasn't like I learned it from series, like I've been seeing it and hearing it, but you know, this community that I was exposed to, organizing community, helped me connect the dots between my lived experience and this academic and other notion of what was happening, you know. So, and then lastly, also, if you're very responsible, like once you see it, you can't unsee it, you know. It's like I feel extremely responsible for that. Like I cannot go back to a life where I am not moving or touching. I want to believe justice, because otherwise I would feel like I am betraying my ideas or my principles on that have led me to the abundance that I live with today. You know, because without a doubt, following that and being involved has brought abundance and love into my life, you know. So yeah. So it's great to be here. When I think of your own journeys, I think about my parents, I think about the opportunities that you'll have in front of you, of those moments of decision that you need to make. And if I can give you one lesson today for you to take back, is that you lean into the discomfort of that opportunity. Because I wasn't born a muralist, I wasn't born an interpreter, I wasn't born an American, but I have become all of those things because of God, and because that is my role in this earth. And I invite you to just be open to your own role. It's not maybe your plan, but it's bigger than that. You never know what's gonna happen, you know,
Love
so.
that.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ricardo. Ricardo will be here for 9 months as our artist organizer. So he'll be here on campus and you'll be doing some collaborative art during symposium week for people who be on campus. And
We'll be doing one of these lunches, so we're hope to bring more artists, organizer friends, and to really leave a trail here during this time of what we're doing and to, yeah, celebrate it.
yeah, Pan did have one question before we go. Pan asked, do you see yourself as more than a muralist? Good.
Yeah, I really love this artist, who his name is Kolorovsky, he's Chilean, but he really helped me understand, like, in this society, like, we're expected to play a role, like, you're a teacher, you're a student, I'm a dad, like, when in reality, humans are so complex, right? So I do feel like I am a muralist, but it's like many other faces of that, that I would do a disservice if I would say injustice or that, so. And at the same time, that also gives me a lot of respect for people who do only muralism. So it keeps me humble, I guess, so, yeah, that's how I would approach it, so, yeah. Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for coming and see you at the next arts lunch.
Yeah,
Have a good one.
bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.